This video will introduce you to research using secondary sources. It's our second video in this area, and it will cover restatements of the law, legal periodicals, and research guides. Let's review our types of secondary sources for a moment. We discussed in video number 1 that secondary sources include treatises, practice guides or CLEs, legal encyclopedias, and American law reports. All of those were covered in video number 1. Now we're going to turn our focus to the restatements of the law, legal periodicals, including law journals, bar reviews, and so on, as well as how to locate these secondary sources. Let's start with the restatements of the law. The restatements are published by ALI, the American Law Institute. ALI consists of major professors from certain topic areas who are invited to join the Institute and who then sit and attempt to synthesize or restate the common law, namely case law, into general principles. The restatement of the law is often cited by courts, so it's a very helpful secondary source. Unfortunately, only limited topics are covered in restatements of the law, so trust is covered, property, torts, but not all of the other topics that you're familiar with from your law school studies. In format, the restatements are available in print at the Boston College Law Library, as well as on Westlaw, Lexis, and Hein Online. Now, when would you use a restatement volume? One instance would be where the law in your particular jurisdiction is unclear or maybe non-existent. Maybe there has been no case law on a particular topic, but the restatement does address it. In that instance, you might want to cite to that particular restatement discussion as authority. A contrasting situation would be your jurisdiction has actually adopted a restatement section as its statement of the law, or has cited it with approval in other case law, and in that case you could make use of those comments and illustrations within the restatement to interpret and apply that legal rule, and we'll look at that in just a moment. The last instance might be where you need more case citations, or you are just interested in locating some persuasive authority. So what actually is included in the restatement? Each restatement is organized into chapters, titles, and sections. And within those sections, there'll be a concise statement of the rule, then some explanatory comments, and then it segues into illustrations of particular examples. They look a little bit like little hypotheticals, and then a statement of whether or not there are any variations on the general principles discussed. As well, you'll find something called reporter's notes. So as the scholars in this field are meeting and discussing this, there is someone designated as a reporter who takes notes, and those are reprinted along with the restatement, concise statements and explanatory comments, so they can be helpful to see how the discussion evolved. As well, there are appendices to the restatement that will have updates or further annotations of court decisions that are issued after that restatement has been published, so further applying and interpreting that section. Here's our restatement of the law section example. So we're looking at torts, and section 652A is a general principle talking about invasion of the right of privacy. So we start off again with a general statement, where does the law stand? And then we have comment, and here we have history, and you'll see that they really are serious about their history. They're going back and citing an 1890 law review article in the Harvard Law Review by Brandeis. So clearly they're looking at the whole scope of the common law. Let's contrast that with something called a topical service. Sometimes these are called loose leaves. These are really designed for practitioners or researchers in a particular area of law. So if you're a tax practitioner, you will probably have the CCH Standard Federal Tax Reporter somewhere in your office. If you're a securities practitioner, you'll have a similar type service, and so on. These are hybrid sources. We call them hybrid because they contain both the primary law. They'll have reproductions of the statutes and regulations and cases that are applicable to this area of practice, but they also include commentary. Their commentary is practical and far less scholarly in focus than a treatise, and certainly much less in-depth and historical than the restatement that you just saw. In format, loose leaves or topical services are available in print. They're on Lexis and Westlaw, Bloomberg BNA, and CCH and Teleconnect. When would you opt to use this topical service? Really, when you want to find various types of material concerning a particular area of law. If you're new to environmental law and you really don't know the regulations, it's much easier to search in a topical service about hazardous waste or oil releases and find the relevant primary law and then see some related commentary and get yourself up to speed. Also, if you're looking for updated information, we know these are updated constantly, so it's always going to be current. Or sometimes you may find that your particular firm has this source as their preferred source, and they may point you to it for your research. Here's an example of a print topical service. This is the CCH, our Commerce Clearinghouse Federal Securities Law Reporter. Here at Boston College Law Library, we would be using this online through CCH and Teleconnect. When we did our sample search here for proxy and electronic, we came up with over 8,000 results. From that, I could jump to any of these categories. I could go in and look just at treatises or just select news in that area. As you can see from the screen capture here, it defaults to showing the explanations. This would be the editorial comment, then the laws, this is the statutory material, and then the regulations in that area. And certainly you would probably be doing a more specific search, but that gives you a good flavor for what's contained in the source. Legal periodicals really are legal commentary. They're going to be published on a periodic or ongoing basis, and there are 4 major types. Academic law reviews are probably the ones you're more familiar with from your law school career. Those will be critical discussions of a topic with lots of footnotes. A Bar Association journal, in contrast, will be a very concise analysis of a practice area, not heavily footnoted, but will contain references to the applicable law. A legal newsletter will be devoted to a specific area of law. So there are ones, for example, in environmental law field. It will cover new developments. And then legal newspapers such as National Law Journal, Massachusetts Lawyers Weekly will cover current issues and the broader legal news. For all of these, the format that they're available in would be print, Lexis, Westlaw, Bloomberg Law, and Hein Online. When would you opt to use a legal periodical? Well, really when you're researching a cutting-edge issue, so you want to know exactly what's happening at this very moment, or if you want to see some trends in legal practice, it would be nice to look, for example, at National Law Journal and see what the trend is for hiring or new associate salaries and so on. How do we go about locating these secondary sources? One way is to start with a research guide, and I'm going to show you the Boston College Law Library's homepage and show you a specific research guide that we've created for just this purpose. So let me get out of this for a moment, and we're going to go over here. I'm at the Boston College Law Library's homepage, and I have an option to search just within research guides. So I'm going to search for treatises, and we'll see what we retrieve. I'm using that as a broad term. So we have this particular list. And if I choose environmental law, it will retrieve for me not only multi-volume treatises and loose leaf services that I may want to look at, but also tell me there are some related subjects that I may need to go out and review as well. So for this particular source, the Federal Environmental Regulation of Real Estate Law Digest, I know it's available online with Westlaw, and if I click this, it would bring me to my Westlaw login screen, and I'd use my credentials to log in. Here's a source that was only available on Lexis, and here we have one that's on Bloomberg BNA. So this particular guide will be very helpful to you in terms of finding where these particular research tools are in terms of secondary sources. You needn't memorize the content on the different vendors. So let's go back for just a moment. We were looking at research guides. Now I want to show you the Holmes catalog, which searches materials owned by Boston College Law School or the larger university. So we'll go back to our home page again, and this time I'm going to say I want to search under all, and I'm going to look for environmental law. And similar to the research guide, this will bring me into more specific materials. For example, if there are ALR or American law reports on environmental law, it will help me find those immediately. Don't be discouraged by this date because these are constantly updated. So I might find this particular Rogers Environmental Law Treatise, and when I go in and look at this, it tells me it's available on Westlaw, and if I looked at this available online link, it would allow me to click this and go directly into Westlaw to discover that. So I have a number of different ways I can discover my secondary sources. There will be many more techniques and tips that we cover in our class sessions. Also, we'll cover in a subsequent video how to look at Lexis, Westlaw, Bloomberg Law, CCH, and so on to find more secondary sources. Remember, if you're still stumped, you can always go to your research vendors' websites, for example, the Bloomberg Law website, and there are training videos there as well if you'd like to expand your coverage of this. Always know that you can bring this question up in class as well.